I declared that Harper and Phil, the hot new romance of the New Zealand soap Shortland Street, was a doomed couple, and you know what? I have changed my mind. Oh lordy. Yes, indeed, we're 3 months into an affair between longtime character Harper Whitley and relative newcomer Phil Grayson, and what started out as a casual flirtation has now progressed into not just a full-blown affair, but a full-blown love story that has been carefully evolved to such a point that my cynicism at a possible future for these two has not just been challenged, but dare I say, overthrown, and I will take you into my reasoning as to why, despite having been burned many times on other ships, I am ready to declare that I think Harper and Drew will break up and Harper will end up with Phil. We last left off Harper going behind Phil's back to move her out of ED in what she declared was an attempt to protect them because returning Dr. Emmett was clocking their easy rapport a bit too much. While the move was poorly executed by Harper, it did lead to them having an actual conversation, something that has been lacking for our ladies, who have been too busy locking lips passionately whenever they got the chance, and then breaking up and getting back together. This, in fact, doesn't change because we get a delightful, if short-lived, period of the two ladies running off to have sex whenever they could, and it gave us Phil very saucily flashing Harper in an attempt to entice her back to bed, and Harper wasn't complaining.
If I get back into bed with you, I might never get out.
I wouldn't mind.
That's tempting.
Even if the demand on Harper's time have been pulling her in all directions. Drew and the kids are, of course, a constant, and then we also finally got to see her supporting Nicole, which love to see them together. More of that, please. That lone scene is one of the few times that Nicole has been bearable during her grieving process since Leanne's passing. Harper does have a way with her, just saying. All that had Harper apologising.
Because I'm not managing this very well.
I don't need to be managed. I know that this isn't a normal way of dating someone.
And while Phil says that she's okay, there have definitely been hints that she's not finding all of this as easy as she lets on. Case in point, she decides to start seeing Vinny, who she'd almost had a thing with back when she and Ihaya were in an open relationship. Cue jealous Harper, who, given she is still with her husband, can't really protest. And it was clear that Phil was doing this in an attempt to get a bit of power back in a situation where she has none. And I guess to get a rise out of Harper, some proof that she cares.
Just let me go off on the date. You didn't even seem bothered. It kind of hurt my feelings.
Of course I was bothered.
You were?
I was a wreck.
I have to say I appreciated the fact that Harper and Phil were making the effort to talk about this, and I appreciate even more that they couldn't even get past the front door before they were all over each other. Shame that Sage had to, again, clam jam that party. But honestly, it does feel like Harper and Phil were progressing because they were addressing some of the issues.
I have no control.
I had no idea you feel like that.
To be honest, neither did I, but that's what it feels like I'm doing. Just waiting all the time, just to get a moment to see you.
This feels like a healthy evolution, right? It wasn't just them impatient to jump each other's bones, although there is that too. It was laying a foundation for them to build an actual relationship, which made it feel like it's not just an affair, but like Phil said, it's them dating. Navigating issues together by talking about it, both caring about how the other feels. We only get a wee glimmer of that though before Boyd, Drew's long-time, although currently estranged, best friend discovers them kissing in the supply closet, which, you know, puts a dampener on things. Although we did get close to an actual love declaration from Harper, which delights me a great deal.
You know how I feel about you, don't you?
Yeah. Me too.
After being caught, Harper begs Boyd not to go running to Drew and to let her tell him in her own time. We get her saying all sorts of declarations that confirm that there are some real and serious feelings between her and Phil.
We care about each other, and it's more than just a meaningless fling.
You think that makes it any better?
I've just met someone and suddenly it's crept up on us, on both of us, and it wouldn't have gone this far if it wasn't important.
For a hot minute there, it looked like Harper would be forced to tell Drew the truth, and she almost did, half-heartedly, and only because Drew was getting suspicious and pushing for a reason as to why they had been off recently. The attempt failed, however, because Phil, very symbolically, interrupted them. This whole incident did, alas, stir up all of Harper's guilt. So when a random man with a gun turned up in ED and Harper almost got shot, it was such a shock to her that once again it led to Harper and Phil breaking things off.
What if I don't want that?
I'm calling time, okay?
The difference here, however, was that this wasn't like the other times. There was a finality to it that to me signaled a shift into a new phase for the two of them. What's interesting is right before that happened, they were talking about the PTSD that Harper had from when the hospital had a mass shooting a year back, which saw her facing the shooter while trying to get her kids out of the creche and to safety. This conversation drew a line between that event and the response Harper had when faced with a gun again, suggesting that her ending things was reactive, coming from a place of fear and trauma. It certainly was not because she had realized how much she was in love with Drew. Yes, she loves him. I do believe her when she says that, but I don't think she's in love with him anymore, because every fumbled attempt to reconnect with him, to try and smooth things over, have failed. Instead of sitting down with him and actually hashing things out, which is what she would do if she really wanted to make this marriage work, she is buying him an expensive motorbike as a form of overcompensation and then looking miserable about it. Getting drunk and partying because, as she says,
I'm feeling all weird and fizzy still. I just want to kind of do something.
and we know it's because she ended things with Phil. And then a week later, after poor Phil has had to play counsellor all week to Drew, who is talking about how his marriage is clearly on the rocks, Harper follows Phil into the... because it has been all about Harper and what she wants up until now. She has very much been in control. And I say that affectionately because I am very partial to Harper, but even though Phil comes across as confident and assertive, she is in love. And I think properly and genuinely for the first time. So she's more or less been at Harper's beck and call throughout, and I appreciate her taking some power and agency back. So another pivotal moment for the two, one that has Harper unable to sleep, which speaks to how unsettled she is. Perhaps after this week of seeing Phil struggling with her job and Harper off trying to patch things with Drew, it might feel like it's the end for these two, especially given how Drew and Harper have been having a date night, which sees them making out on the couch. But again, Phil interrupts any chance of things heading to the bedroom when she calls about work. Again, symbolic. And that is on top of the fact that during the date night, they talk about how they haven't had sex in a while.
We've hardly been having sex.
Which happens.
You mean it never happens?
I would even say since before the earthquake, which is the last canonical time we know that they did, so at least a good 7 weeks ago, which is a red flag symptom of how their marriage is in trouble. While Harper doesn't seem resistant to reconnecting in that way with Drew, the fact that they can't seem to make it to the bedroom is just another nail in the coffin. Of course, the fact that Harper has not confessed her affair is the real death knell for them both, since it screams that Harper is in so deep with Phil that it is not, as Harper said, a fling. It's real. Given how Drew reacts to thinking that Harper was having an affair with Emmett, of all people, shows that when this news comes out, it will be massive, groundbreaking, ground shaking, you know, like the earthquake they put them through. Again, symbolism. So it most certainly is clear that things are on the rocks and in a major way for Harper and Drew. The fact that Harper and Phil's affair has had 3 months of consistent story, there hasn't been a day where one or the other or both are not on our screens, only makes sense, because if you're about to break up a marriage of 8 years, then the breakdown has to justify the years that the show invested in them as a couple. In Soapland, 9 years of relationship may as well be 50 years. This is the long-term fan favorite super couple of the show, with 2 of the most popular, longest running characters. For Harper and Phil to get together now would be too quick, too easy for the weight of the marriage that is going to dissolve. The writers have to carefully navigate this to create an end to this couple that is worthy and satisfying for the loyal long-term viewer. And the fact that the writers are ready to tear them apart is not coming out of nowhere. I think that the seeds for the end of their marriage have been planned for a long, long time. They're just finally ready to do it.
I hope one day you'll be happy.
I'm very happy.
Keep telling yourself that.
Sound familiar?
Whatever you're telling yourself. You're not happy with Drew, otherwise you never would have chased me.
I never chased you.
Don't lie to yourself, Harper.
If you have been following the threesome storyline from 2018 of Harper, Drew and their nanny Danny that the channel Nicole Zara has been uploading the past couple of weeks, the contrast of how Harper comports herself then and now is quite stark. There are some clear similarities in the storylines. Both Danny and Phil are young women who both have a flirtation with Drew but are ultimately only attracted to Harper, and both put the moves on her. With Danny, Harper is clearly tempted, but she is adamant throughout that she loves Drew and only Drew.
I know how I feel. And I love Drew. It's never going to happen.
And the way that she speaks, I believe her. But with Phil, when she tries to assert the same, it falls flat.
Sorry, this is nuts.
There's something here, Harper. Do you feel it?
I love Drew.
She wants Phil's attention. She invites it. And look, I get it. After the stunts that Drew has pulled during their marriage, I'm not surprised that she's finally at this place with him. I alluded to this in previous videos, but let me colour things in a little more. From the start, things have been fraught between them. After Harper had an abortion, at one point, Drew slept with Kylie, one of the nurses. Apparently, Harper also slept with TK, so I guess they're even on that front, but that's not a good start to be cheating on each other. Then Drew cheated again and slept with Danny without Harper, and in addition to the other stupidities that I've mentioned in my last Harper and Phil video, namely major tax fraud that sent him to jail and sleeping with Nicole, Harper's best friend, he essentially tried to steal Leanne's winning lottery ticket of $4 million, lied about a huge loan he took out for the Ivy, the bar he and Harper owned, guilted Harper into quitting her role as CEO of the hospital, and illegally grew weed at their holiday batch and employed, I think it was teenage boys, to take care of the crop. And there's more, but I think I've covered the major points.
I am so sick of his teenage bullcrap!
And look, Harper is not a neutral party in this. She has pushed Drew away repeatedly, and given the history, who can blame her? And it also just adds to the sense that Harper has never truly felt supported in her relationship with Drew. She ran away when suffering from postpartum depression at the end of 2022, and she did shack up with a guy for 3 weeks during that mental breakdown. The weed storyline also led to them separating in October 2019 for a brief amount of time before Harper's brain tumour brought them back together. I thought this moment when Harper asked him to leave was quite revealing about the dynamic between the two. Sorry for the bad audio, it's the only clip I could find of it.
How do you think we got to this place?
Because I messed up. I know, but come on, this is what we do. I'm like a dick and you point it out and then I grovel and then we move on.
It's got me thinking about how this is feeding into how I see Harper and Phil's story now. She's a talented ED doctor. This is her happy place where she feels strong and competent. But when it comes to her personal relationships, she hasn't displayed the same level of self-esteem.
And what is my track record in that department?
A smart, attractive woman is in love with you, and all you can do is sit here and witter on about how it's not going to last.
So I'm pathetic.
We see it in her relationship with Nicole. She put up with a lot of Nicole and Vinny crap, but was always willing to go back to her each time. With Boyd, he found his 3D printer more interesting than spending time with her.
I could be dancing around naked with silk scarves and elephants, and there'd be nothing.
And yet, she still ended up proposing to him as a kind of panic response to meeting Drew. And honestly, I think she would have married him had Boyd not gotten held up at the hospital on the day of their wedding, and that he finally broke things off. And then when she does finally get together with Drew, she puts up with all of his terrible behavior. There is a pattern here of her falling for people that disappoint her, that betray her, which, given her troubled background, makes sense. She grew up in a petty crime family that she worked her butt off to escape from by going to medical school, a family that would have happily seen her pole dancing in a strip club or otherwise involved in the family business, and her mother who abandoned her at 11 years old and didn't resurface until just this year. I think the resurfacing of her mum, learning that she too, like Harper, had suffered from postpartum depression and eventually running away to escape from that stifling family life, made Harper reflect on her past and the life she has made for herself. One that, as I've said before, I don't think she's ever quite been at ease with. I don't think that she's necessarily consciously understood this yet, but I could well see that this is a dawning realization that in her husband, she's chosen someone that echoes the toxic men of her childhood childhood, her father, her Uncle Benny, her brother, charming men with a bit of a bad boy edge, but who have pretty consistently hurt and disappointed her. Drew, being of a similar ilk, feels familiar and therefore the comfortable and easy choice.
What?
You are just like my dad.
No, I'm not like you.
After everything I've done to try and get away from my family, I end up with this?
It's a relationship in which she knows her role, long-suffering, eye-rolling, but ultimately devoted wife. She's tried to break away from the relationship multiple times and failed, but it seems that finally Harper has had enough of it. The weight of almost a decade of living with someone who cannot fully be reliable, who can't offer her the safe home environment I think she's looking for, finally became too heavy and has worn down the love that she has for Drew. And then Phil came on the scene. Phil displayed some of the characteristics that Harper has found attractive in previous partners. There is a certain ego that she has, possibly a requirement as a surgeon, and with it a cockiness that Harper finds all too attractive, which means that Phil had no trouble blatantly flirting with her in ED. And had that been all Phil had to offer, I don't think things would have progressed. But Phil also began to reveal a softer side to herself, one we as the audience already know about because prior to the affair, we saw how deeply affected she was with the deep love between the elderly couple she had as patients and the clear yearning she had to experience the same kind of love.
They had this huge romance a zillion years ago, and he still remembers. It's so sweet.
Just look at them. So devoted. It's gorgeous.
She's straightforward in communicating her feelings.
I like you like that. No games.
She can read Harper. She seems to understand her on an instinctive level in a way that I don't think Drew ever has.
Just straightening you out, so to speak. Thank you.
My pleasure.
The whole helping Drew to buy Harper the perfume aside, which did feel like an overstep to me. She's done pretty well at being steady and mostly even-keeled with Harper, even as Harper has been all over the show as she blows hot and cold. She's made Harper feel desirable again, which may seem somewhat superficial, but I think it goes deeper in that she's made Harper feel seen, made her feel like she has worth. Phil is, I think, what Harper wishes Drew was and who Drew maintains he is trying to be, but he's also been saying that for 5 years. This is why I think Harper has fallen hard for Phil, not meaning to initially, just flattered at the attention, but quickly finding herself in love, torn between what her heart craves and the life she has. But of course, leaving a relationship is hard. It will not be rushed, especially as there are kids, and the last thing that Harper wants to do is break up the family home. She knows what it's like to live like that. Early on, Harper said,
Because I will fight for my marriage if I have to.
And she has been, tooth and nail, which is why I think we've seen her swing so wildly back and forth, blowing so hot and cold. Poor Phil has been caught up in the middle of this tempest, and bless her, she is doing an amazing job, but I think that the marriage must collapse under its own weight before they reunite. And I see it taking time, with Harper being pulled kicking and screaming to the end of this marriage, because Harper, just like her mother, runs when things get emotionally difficult. She's been running from her feelings for Phil, which is why she hasn't been able to say I love you yet, just as she ran away from Drew and clung to Boyd, even though Boyd was even more wrong for her than Drew. Not to mention, she ran when her postpartum depression got too much. What I would love to see as we move forward is Phil getting some more character development, and please, not one that highlights things like her thoughtless fat-phobic comments of last week, which, yikes Phil, but a story where we get to learn more about her past, have her involved in stories with others on the show that aren't just related to Harper, so that she can be a fully fledged character. I also would not be against the idea of Harper and Phil developing a friendship before they get back together, where they really get to know each other. Phil once said,
You don't know me. Harper, you don't want to know me because it's easier for you.
And it's not untrue. Harper doesn't seem to have made much of an effort to really get to know Phil. But for all of this to happen, like I said, it will take time. I'm even thinking this could take until the end of the year, the same way that Harper leaving Boyd for Drew and the whole love triangle was drawn out over about half a year to the 2015 finale. And oh boy, I am strapped in and ready for the dramatic long-haul ride. Of course, I could be very wrong about all of this, but if this was just about creating more drama for Harper and Drew, then the affair needn't have been anywhere near as elaborate. It could have lasted a month, like the Danny storyline did. Harper also didn't have to fall for her. It didn't have to be with someone that, around the time of the earthquake, became a main cast member, and whose contract went from its initial 6 months to, who knows, a year? 2? maybe even 3? Equally, Shortland Street, with its government grant being slashed, has been forced to reduce from 5 episodes to 3 episodes a week starting in 2025, and as the announcement said, they've put a lot of thought into how they want the show to adapt to that new format, which no doubt will take some serious rejigging. I could well see Harper and Drew's breakup being part of this rejig. There is plenty of juicy storytelling that could come out of not only Harper and Drew breaking up, but them needing to co-parent, of Phil integrating into Harper's life and Drew accepting it. The only real question mark I have around this trajectory is that as gay as Shortland Street has been, will it allow itself to have 2 main sapphic couples on the show with 2 of the long-term core cast, especially with going to 3 days a week, unless Nicole and Maeve are headed for Splitsville too, which is not outside the realm of possibility given their marriage has been very fraught, and bless Maeve's eternal patience, but Nicole has been a piece of work recently. Well, she's always been a piece of work, but more so than usual. So yeah, it's not the storyline itself giving me pause, but rather how gay can one show be when it's an evening time soap aimed at all of New Zealand? But then I think about how the storyline is getting international attention. A small groundswell is rising up and the show knows it. Rhea Vandervis, who plays Harper, has seen an uptick of followers on Insta, enough that she made a post to welcome the newcomers, and both she and Jane Willis, who plays Phil, have been posting Harper and Phil fan content on their Insta stories and even forwarding content to the Shorty publicity department. They know we're here, and with the show getting international attention, is that something they'll ignore? The show certainly has been courting us since 2020 with just how much gay content they've created, because it did have the pairings of Nicole and Maeve, Samira and Francesca, and Leanne and Roz, as well as Harper, all on at the same time, though Samira and Francesca couldn't be developed long-term due to the actors having other commitments. But I wonder if the popularity that the couple got gave them a taste of what could be achieved with a sapphic fanbase, and they're ready for it. If you want to know just how gay Shorty is, check out the playlist on my screen. Until next time, lady lovers.